Some doors don't get opened. They get inherited by people who weren't even born when the lock went on. 10 rooms sealed for decades, sometimes centuries. Stick around for number 4, because that one still gives historians nightmares. Number 10. King Tut's Burial Chamber. Discovery of the Tomb of Tutankhamun. November 1922. Howard Carter has spent 15 years and his patron's fortune chasing one tomb, and everyone told him it was a waste of time. Already looted, empty real estate. He didn't listen. His team found buried steps, then a sealed door bearing a name nobody recognized. Tutankhamun. When Carter cracked a hole and held up a candle, his patron asked the obvious question, "Can you see anything?" His answer became legend. Yes, wonderful things. But that was only the antechamber. The actual burial chamber stayed sealed 3 more months while the team cataloged gold chariots just to reach it. When they finally broke through on February 16, 1923, they found a coffin inside a coffin inside a coffin, the last one solid gold, holding a teenager untouched for 3,000 years. Number 9. The Vatican's hidden necropolis. Underneath St. Peter's Basilica sits an entire buried Roman cemetery nobody touched for 16 centuries. In the 1940s, Pope Pius XI made one request before he died: "Bury me close to Peter." To do that, workers had to dig, and they hit a pagan graveyard from the 1st century, paved over and forgotten centuries earlier. Crews worked in total secrecy for years, terrified that digging too deep would collapse the largest church on the planet. Slowly, they pushed toward the spot tradition said held the bones of St. Peter himself. They found a wall covered in early Christian graffiti, and beneath it, bones wrapped in purple and gold cloth. The Vatican never fully confirmed whose bones they were. They just let the rumors do the talking, and the debate still hasn't stopped. Number 8. The Crypt of Civilization. This one isn't ancient, and that's what makes it wild. In 1940, a university president in Atlanta got obsessed with one question: why do we know almost nothing about civilizations from 6,000 years ago? His answer was to build the opposite problem for the future. He took an old swimming pool basement, lined it with steel and porcelain, and packed it with everything from a beer can to microfilm encyclopedias. Then his team welded the door shut. Permanently. It can't legally be opened until the year 8113, meaning everyone alive right now will be dead for thousands of years before anyone cracks that seal. It's sitting under a university building today, completely intact, holding a message addressed to people who haven't been born yet. Nothing inside worth stealing. Everything inside is worth waiting for. Number 7. Notre-Dame's secret coffins. April 2019, the world watched Notre-Dame burn live. Nobody expected the fire to lead to a discovery centuries old. While rebuilding the spire in 2022, workers drilling support scaffolding hit something solid 20 feet under the floor. A lead coffin, shaped like a human body, sealed since the 1300s. Scientists fed a tiny camera through a crack instead of opening it cold. What came back stopped the team. Hair, fabric, preservation leaves, all intact after 700 years. Testing later identified the remains as a Renaissance poet whose grave location had been a mystery for centuries, sitting quietly under the floor the whole time. A second coffin nearby belonged to a wealthy church official who died in 1710. 2 strangers, for 100 years apart, both waiting under the same stone. Number 6. Khufu's buried boat. In 1954, archaeologist Kamal El-Malik was clearing rubble beside the Great Pyramid when a row of limestone blocks caught his eye. He drilled a tiny hole, dropped a mirror inside to catch sunlight, and the smell of cedar would hit him first, trapped for 4,500 years. Inside was an entire ship, dismantled into over 1,200 wooden pieces, sealed so airtight that moisture never touched it since before the pyramids stopped being used as tombs. It took specialists over a decade to figure out how the pieces fit, since the boat was built without a single nail, only rope. Here's the part that gets skipped. A second sealed pit sat right next to the first one in 1954, but nobody touched it. It waited another 55 years before anyone dared open it in 2009. Number 5. The toy room above the church. A reverend at a church in Liverpool kept hearing the same rumor for years. There's a room up there nobody's entered since the war. In 2014, he finally pried open a trapdoor in the ceiling. Inside wasn't gold, it was toys. Old books, wrapped snacks, packets of vintage hot chocolate, frozen in place since World War II. Historians believe the church got bombed during the Blitz, and during the chaos of rebuilding, this little play space got sealed off and forgotten, brick by brick. The strangest detail wasn't the toys at all, it was one book in the pile, dated all the way back to 1696. Nobody can explain why a book that old sat tucked inside a children's play area from the 1940s. Beside candy nobody ever got to eat. Number 4. Pompeii's Forgotten Bedroom. Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD and buried an entire city under ash in hours. Most people know Pompeii's plaster casts of frozen bodies. Fewer know what turned up in 2021 just outside the walls. In a villa called Civita Juliana, diggers uncovered a tiny room untouched for nearly 2,000 years. Inside were 3 simple beds, one sized for a child, plus a chest holding horse harness gear. This wasn't a noble's bedroom, it was slave quarters, telling a story written nowhere else, since enslaved people barely appeared in Roman writing at all. No decoration, barely any light, just jars in the corner where archaeologists later found rat bones. Animals trying to escape the eruption right alongside the humans. A second similar room turned up in 2023, with a slightly better bed for someone who'd earned one small privilege. Number 3. The German bunker nobody could reach. In 1918, French shelling collapsed an underground shelter in northern France, trapping 34 German soldiers sheltering inside. Troops pulled out only 13 bodies before deciding the rest of the tunnel was too dangerous to keep digging. So they sealed it, walked away from 21 men still buried where they fell. For over 90 years, that shelter sat completely undisturbed beneath farmland. A silent grave nobody marked on any map that mattered. In 2010, road construction crews broke ground for a routine project and accidentally uncovered the collapsed tunnel. What they found inside was a frozen moment from one of history's bloodiest wars. Weapons, personal items, remains exactly where they'd fallen in 1918. One of the only places on Earth where you can stand inside an unaltered scene from the trenches. Number 2. Peoria's 128-year time capsule. In 1897, city officials in Peoria, Illinois sealed a small box inside the cornerstone of their brand new city hall, packed with newspapers and business cards, then basically forgot about it for over a century. It wasn't even rediscovered on purpose. In 2025, construction crews doing routine facade repairs stumbled onto it by accident, buried exactly where it had sat for 128 years. The city didn't just crack it open quietly. They gathered the whole community along the riverfront on the exact anniversary date it was first sealed. Inside were documents giving a snapshot of 1890s Peoria, mundane everyday objects nobody thinks to preserve until they're the only ones left. The mayor called it the most honest thing you can say about any time capsule. A message from people who lived here, written for strangers they'd never meet. Number 1. Penn State's half-century promise. In 1949, students and staff at Penn State buried a time capsule with one instruction: don't touch this for decades. They weren't messing around. The capsule stayed sealed so long that most of the people who buried it had passed on by the time anyone went looking again. When the university finally opened it, what struck researchers wasn't anything shocking. It was how familiar everything felt. The goals students wrote down, their hopes for the school, even small complaints about campus life, lined up almost exactly with conversations happening that same week. It became less a historical curiosity and more a mirror, proof that across 7 decades and several generations, being a student barely changed. Sometimes the most interesting thing buried underground isn't a mystery. It's a reminder we're not as different from the past as we think. So which sealed room messed with your head the most? Drop it in the comments, I actually want to know. And if you made it this far without skipping, hit subscribe, because way more stories like this are coming.